Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the second episode of the Grand Slams and Grand Prix podcast. I'm your host, Anais Lopez, and as you can tell, today we have a new addition to the podcast. We now have video. With that being said, I currently am in my dorm room. So, if you can hear things going on around me or outside, I do apologize in advance. I will try to keep that at a minimum. But if you do happen to hear something, I'm sorry. Before we get on with the rest of the episode, I just wanted to tell everybody, please go follow our TikTok and our Instagram. It is the same on both platforms. I'll put it here on the screen for those of you watching video, but for those of you listening, it is at GS and GP Podcast. Go follow us there to keep up with the things that, just the things that I post and for upcoming things to look forward to. With that being said, in our last episode, I talked a little bit about the Bahrain Grand Prix that was going on this past weekend, and then I also talked about the Padres and Rockies series. I do want to apologize. I did forget to talk about the Padres and Cubs series that was also happening, but I will be talking about that today, so I apologize for not doing that last week. But kind of just jumping straight in with Bahrain. So last weekend, F1 was on their fourth race of the calendar, and they were in Bahrain. And Oscar Piastri, the McLaren driver, he took P1. So I personally think that this race was his from the start. Nobody could really keep up with his pace. He maintained a 15-second gap throughout the whole race, which is honestly really impressive, and it ultimately gave him a really huge upper hand. Despite the safety car, he managed to get that gap back nearing the end of the race. So, yeah, that was not the case for second though. Despite Lando Norris's 5-second penalty that he received for a false start, at the start of the race where he was past his grid box, both him and George Russell in the Mercedes were battling it out for P2. Throughout the whole race, they were going head to head, trying to take that second place spot behind Oscar. Despite Charles and the Ferraris also trying to get in on some of the action, ultimately it came down to the Mercedes and the McLaren, where George did end up taking P2 and Lando took P3. Aside from our podium, I feel like this race was honestly a step up from Suzuka. Suzuka was a very boring race, but Bahrain brought us a lot of the overtakes and the unexpected things that comes with F1, and with the unexpected things comes unexpected finishes and where drivers ended up. And I kind of wanted to talk about that a little bit because I feel like this past race had some surprising finishes, at least for me. So starting off with Max Verstappen in P6 behind both of the Ferraris. He was battling it out with Pierre Gasly for probably the last 15 to 20 laps of the race. They were going head to head for who could take P6 when it came down to crossing that line. And ultimately, Max took it after crossing that line first. With that being said, though, Pierre Gasly was P7. This was his highest finish of the season and also the first points scored by Alpine this season. So, congratulations, Alpine. You are now on the board. And that officially means that all 10 teams have scored points this season. So, we're looking at not a fair race, but we're looking at some little dabbles of competition for the Constructors' Championship. Following Pierre in P7, we have Esteban Ocon in P8. Despite his DNF in qualifying, he climbed his way up all the way from P14 and scored Haas some needed points. His roommate also did score points. Oliver Behrman, he After a rough qualifying, he started P20, which is last on the grid. He fought his way through the whole midfield, including his former F2 teammate Kimi Antonelli, and ended up in P10, scoring Haas some more points that definitely helps them in the race. And next, we do have the Kimi Antonelli finishing in P11. After securing P4 in qualifying, he just really couldn't keep up with the pace and the track limits that Bahrain has. He did end up getting a checkered flag, which means that he was on his last warning, and if he were to continue going over track limits, he would be receiving penalties. He was not the only driver to receive the checkered flag, though, so I feel like that kind of speaks to how difficult of a track Bahrain is to drive on, but he didn't ultimately end up taking P11 behind his former F2 teammate Oliver Behrman. Lastly, Carlos Sainz did not finish the race. He retired his car early after making contact with Yuki Tsunoda in lap 47. This resulted in no points for Williams this weekend, their first time not scoring points this season, as their second driver, or more so first seat driver, but anyways, their other driver, Alex Albon, placed P12, not scoring them any points. Some extras from this race that I also wanted to talk about, I felt like worth mentioning, were Yuki Tsunoda, as much as he did make contact with Carlos Sainz, ended up in P9, scoring his first points with Red Bull this weekend. After coming up from their junior team in replacement of Liam Lawson, he did not score points at his home race last weekend in Suzuka, but did score them this weekend. So congratulations, Yuki, even if it costed Carlos Sainz not finishing. Secondly, Ferrari's new tire strategy. So this past weekend, Ferrari started both drivers on medium tires, which contrasted with what a lot of the rest of the grid was doing, starting their drivers on a soft tire. The decision ultimately aimed to provide a strategic advantage in tire durability and pit stop flexibility, probably trying to make a two-stop race a one-stop race, according to Pierre Gasly, but when it came down to the performance of them, though, Charles Leclerc did get overtaken early on in the race, but did manage to secure a fourth-place finish, demonstrating the car's improved handling and his adaptability to new conditions and strategies, whereas Lewis Hamilton has started showing very significant progress in adapting to the Ferrari. He finished 5th, right behind his teammate, Charles, and he noted that there were improvements in the car handling and the setup, which indicates that he is positively integrating with the Ferrari team, which is amazing to hear after his first few races weren't ideal to what we know Louis can do. Following that, we have Nico Hülkenberg and his disqualification following the race. So the Sauber driver's car was subject to a random post-race inspection where it was found that his rear skid underneath his car was found to be under the minimum thickness of 9 millimeters, leading to an instant disqualification, which we also saw happen to Lewis Hamilton in the Chinese Grand Prix. I feel like that's kind of all of my takeaways from the Bahrain Grand Prix. Overall, like I said at the start, it was way more entertaining than Suzuka. Suzuka, I felt like I was falling asleep watching because it was kind of boring for how fun of a track it is. But, yeah. I feel kind of next we're going to jump into the Padres and Rockies series. So the Padres swept their series against the Colorado Rockies without any hesitation, with their first game on Friday, April 8th, resulting in an 8-0 victory. They decided that was not enough for them. Saturday, April 9th, they closed out a 2-0 game and then rocked the Rockies to sleep with a final 6-0 shutout at Petco Park. Despite these shutouts, though, this series did have some shutdowns. The Padres second baseman and star player Jake Cronenworth was hit by a pitch on their game on Friday, earning him a fractured right rib and a spot on the 10-day injured list. And yeah, this series also marked the first time in franchise history that the Padres swept a 3-game series without allowing a single run. And the Padres are also off to their best start since 1998 and have improved their home record to a perfect 10-10 and matched their best franchise start at 13-3. So that's amazing to hear. But following their sweep, the Padres went up against the Chicago Cubs at the one and only Petco Park. The Padres took the series 2-1, showcasing strong performances from their strong players and solid pitching. In the first game of the series, the Padres defeated the Cubs in a 10-4 victory. Some highlights from this game were the multiple home runs from star player Fernando Tatis Jr., including a solo home run in the third, and then a 2-run home run in the sixth inning. Also, a home run from Luis Arraez in the bottom of the eighth inning to finish that game out. In the second game, the Cubs fought back and ultimately took the win in the end, the only point on the board by the Padres being a solo home run from star player and third baseman Manny Machado. And in the final game of the series, the Padres came back to claim their final victory against the Cubs for this series. Fernando Tatis Jr. contributed 1 RBI, and Manny Machado contributed 2 to the overall score. And for our final run or so walk of the game, Fernando Tatis Jr. was walked with bases loaded, resulting in an end score of 4-2. Though this series brings the Padres' home record down to 12-1. Win or lose, the Padres still do it for the faithful. There's still a season ahead of us, so I think that they will continue to showcase their strengths and really show the rest of the league that they have a run for playoffs this year, and they have a really good run for it this year, I think. So, yeah. Taking a look outside of Petco, though, there are a few things that I want to touch on, and you may see the growing smile on my face because with 14 runs and 15 hits in the final 3 innings, the Dodgers saw their worst home shutout against the Cubs, a 16-0 shutout. I feel like a moment of silence is needed for that as a Padres fan, because if you guys don't watch baseball or keep up with baseball, or really anyways, if you guys don't keep up with baseball or really kind of don't keep up with like the beef of California, LA and San Diego have a never-ending beef with each other. They are like rivals. And so anytime that the Dodgers fall, the Padres rise. And so this shutout, I feel like, means a lot to Padres fans. And honestly, it shook the whole MLB too, because as the 2024 World Series champions, I don't think anybody expected the Dodgers to take a 16-0 loss at home. So, yeah, this does bring the Dodgers down to third in the National League West, though, behind the Padres in first and then the Giants in second. And then next up, Aaron Judge was named the captain of the Team USA for the 2026 World Baseball Classic. And for those of you who don't know, the World Baseball Classic is kind of the baseball version of like the World Cup. Players get to choose the like country that they'll play for, and in the end, everybody plays. Essentially, I wouldn't say everybody wins, but it's a fun thing to do, like support your country, and yeah. Next up, probably my favorite part of doing this podcast is the predictions part of it. So this weekend, Friday, April 18th to the 20th, the Padres will be heading out to Dyken Park in Houston, Texas for their series against the Houston Astros. Currently, the Houston Astros are 8-10. The Astros have experienced a mixed start to their season and are currently sitting 4th in the American League West. The team has undergone significant roster changes, with key players like Kyle Tucker and Alex Bregman no longer on their roster. New additions such as Isaac Paredes, Christian Walker, and Cam Smith are working to fill those voids, though. Despite the changes, the lineup remains pretty strong, centered around Yordan Alvarez, one of the league's top hitters. But back to the Padres, they have been very dominant this season, obviously. They flex a strong lineup led by Fernando Tatis Jr., who already has hit 6 home runs and maintains a .361 batting average. Their pitching staff has also been very impressive, contributing to a lot of their success because a good pitcher means your team is going to do pretty good if they can hold their game, if they can hold their own. So, for my prediction of this series, given the Padres' strong start and the balanced performance on both their offense and their defense, I think they are favored to take this series. However, the Astros' strong lineup and the home field advantage could make for a high energy and competitive series. So we may see some twists there, but ultimately I think this is the Padres series to take, just like the last one against the Rockies and the one against the Cubs. After warming up in the heat of Houston, the Padres will travel to the Midwest to Comerica Park to face the Detroit Tigers. They're heading to Michigan. I don't know how to say that stadium name, so I apologize if any of you guys are Detroit fans or get offended that I can't say it. But they're going to Michigan. Currently, the Detroit Tigers are 10-6 and have shown a lot of resilience, especially at home with a 5-1 record. Key players like Spencer Torkelson and Kerry Carpenter have been instrumental in their offensive productions. For my prediction of this series, again, with the Padres' strong start and their balanced performance both on offense and defense, I do think they're favored to take this series also. However, the Tigers hold a solid home record, and it suggests that they could pose a challenge, but in the end, it'll make for an exciting matchup. I'm excited to watch both of these series. I'm glad baseball is back, even though it's been back for a few weeks now. But yeah, I do think it'll be a good one. Okay, now back to F1. This next Grand Prix is in Jeddah, which is in Saudi Arabia. This is the last Grand Prix of our triple header consisting of Suzuka, Bahrain, and Jeddah. And here are my predictions. With Oscar Piastri entering the weekend fresh off a dominant victory in Bahrain, only 3 points behind his teammate Lando Norris, who is currently leading the Drivers' Championship, we can expect the tension between the two McLaren drivers to be pretty high. We expected this at the start of the season coming in. We knew that last season Oscar was putting up a really good fight against Lando. But this season it is really taking its stage. So, with no first seat driver at McLaren, we must wait and see how their strategy will play out and whether they'll hold Oscar back to give Lando a chance at his first championship this season, or if they will let Oscar have a run at that championship as well. But after a challenging race in Bahrain where Max Verstappen finished 6th due to some technical issues, Red Bull is under a lot of pressure to address their performance concerns and reclaim the competitive edge that they once had against the McLarens. If they don't, they could fall short of the McLarens for both the Constructors' Championship and the World Drivers' Championship. So, Red Bull, I think you might have to get on that real soon. But hopping over to Ferrari, Charles and Louis will look to capitalize off of Ferrari's recent technical updates, including a revised floor design and some aerodynamic adjustments to challenge for podium positions and hope to climb the ranks from their 4th place in Constructors. They're currently behind Mercedes, I think. No. They're currently behind Red Bull, who is behind Mercedes. I'm pretty sure. But as for my winning predictions, an obvious guess would be Oscar Piastri, who is currently hot off his win in Bahrain and looking to claim his 3rd victory this season. But looking at the other side of the very same garage, Lando Norris shows a lot of consistency in his constant podium finishes and his single victory so far this season. So he may be looking to continue his lead in the World Drivers' Championship. But once again, like I said before, this kind of all depends on the calls of McLaren. So we'll see. It may just be the Tifosi delusion speaking, but with some new updates, to the car, Charles may have a chance at a podium finish and fingers crossed a win. He hasn't been too far off of the podium this season, so we'll see where he ends up in this next race. I mean, in Bahrain, he was P4 right there behind Lando, so we'll see. Lastly, current reigning world champion Max Verstappen. He's coming off of a P6 in Bahrain, so he is ready to come back fast and hard. But if Red Bull fixes both their braking and tire issues, I do think that he poses a very good threat to the McLarens. He has posed a threat all season, but I do think, especially in Saudi Arabia, with this being a more difficult circuit, I think that if he gets if he figures out what needs to be figured out, then I think he poses a very big threat to the McLarens. So, okay. So for my actual predictions, if McLaren keeps up with their current run and Red Bull magically fixes their car, or doesn't magically fix their car, sorry, I think Oscar Piastri is most likely going to be our winner. Sorry to all the Lando girls. I know there are a few people listening that are very big Lando fans, and this may hint at another series. I'm trying to fit into this, but hot take, I think Oscar has a better chance at the championship this season than Lando. Oh my god, who said that? Oh my god, what? Yeah, I said it. I'll take responsibility for that. I do think Oscar has a better chance at that championship than Lando. But hey, to each their own. To each their own. But for my podium, I think I would predict Oscar, obviously in P1. I think P2 could be Max if Red Bull improves all the issues that they have going on with car, at least. Not with whatever else they have going on, because they have some serious issues. But if they fix the issues with their car, I think Max could take P2, very close to Oscar very close to P1. But if it weren't Max in P2, I do think it could be George again. And then lastly in P3, I do think Lando. He's been showing a lot of consistency, but I do feel like he's kind of not losing that drive or competitiveness, but I do think the rest of the field is starting to catch up with him. So I do think Lando could be very, very right there at P3, if not Charles. But like I said, that might just be the Tifosi solution, because I don't think we have not seen Charles on the podium this season yet. So I think it needs to happen soon, and I think it may happen this weekend if it's not Lando. So yeah. But I guess I'll just tell you guys. I've currently been thinking of different segments to do on the podcast, what you're listening to. And one of them is a hot takes section. So I figured, since I already got my feet wet, I'll kind of go off of it. And I do think Oscar will outscore Lando in the championship standings. I think that last season, Oscar really showed the potential he had as a driver, especially more towards the end. He started putting up against Lando a lot, and with Lando being so close to Max last season for the championship, I do think that McLaren prioritized trying to get Lando there over trying to showcase and capitalize off of the skills that Oscar had. So I do think that this season, McLaren should put a little bit more into the potential that is Oscar Piastri, because, I mean, come on. The way that the dude got into F1 is already a story in itself. He was supposed to be driving for Alpine, and then last minute was like, hey guys, actually, I'm driving for McLaren now. So I feel like that's a story in itself. And straight off the bat, I mean, Oscar came in hot. Just to put it simply, he came in and he knew what he was there to do. And honestly, I do think that if they give Oscar the chance, Oscar has the skills to not only win one championship, but multiple. And I think that I see a lot of I don't know how to say it. I see a lot of Max and Oscar, kind of. I think that with the power and the drive no pun intended. But like the drive, the power, the skills that Max has, Oscar has a lot of those too. So I think once they let him, essentially what I'm trying to say is once they let Oscar off that leash that they have him on in McLaren, he's going to be unstoppable. And I don't think that, it's not that Lando doesn't have it. It's just that I don't think Lando has the same mentality and the same, like, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but like he doesn't have like that tweak that Oscar has, if that makes sense. Anyways, enough about that because I can make a whole episode on that itself. But my second hot take, and the probably the last one I'll say it before I don't have any more hot takes so far. I think that Kimi will win his first Grand Prix this season. A lot like Oscar, Max, Louis, like a lot of the drive that they have and a lot of the determination and just a lot of the skills that they have, I see so much in Kimi. I've followed Kimi since he was brought into F2 to drive with Prema, and that's a whole other episode I'll do too, explaining the different like levels of F1. But I've been following Kimi since he was in F2 with Prema, and honestly, he was always very dominant there. Though, yes, everybody has the races that they don't win. Cough, cough, Max Verstappen in P6 literally this past weekend. But everybody has those slip-ups. It's normal. They're athletes. It's fine. But Kimi has always been a very, like, prominent driver, even in, like, the lower formula divisions. Ever since he was in karting, he was winning back to back to back to back. Formula 4, he was, like, racing in two different, like, championships, won both at the same time. Like, he's completely skipped F3 because he was, like, Total Wolff. Okay, another thing that gets me about Kimi is, like, Total Wolff saw his potential back in his karting days. Total Wolff saw that kid karting and was like, yeah, that's the one. And if it's one thing that I think Total Wolff knows how to do, is cultivate a good driver. Look at Lewis Hamilton and George Russell. Lewis Hamilton, 7-time world champion? And then George Russell, although he isn't a champion, George Russell is a very, very good driver. I will say that. And, I mean, Total Wolff knows what he's doing with Kimi. Like, when people say that Kimi is like a machine in a way, they're not lying. Like, he literally eats, sleeps, and breathes driving. And honestly, I feel like you don't see a lot of passion like that. Like, a lot of drivers kind of pick up karting because they think it's interesting or something, and they just continue on with it. And yes, they love driving, but I don't think a lot of drivers have like a genuine, like, deep down, like, love and passion for it the way that Kimi does. And Kimi has the mentality of a lot of older world champions that I definitely think he will win his first Grand Prix this season. We may not see a championship from him for another few years, but I do think that a Grand Prix win is in his foreseeable future. And I'm not just saying that because I love Kimi. I genuinely think, like, there's something there. But yeah, with that, I feel like that was a little bit of a new series, new segment I'm trying to add in. So if you guys like that, please let me know and I'll start doing more hot takes. Not only for F1, but also for baseball, because I do kind of have some of those too. But yeah. Next week's episode is going to be a very exciting one. I have some guests coming on, which I'm very excited for you guys to meet all of them. But yeah, next Friday, new episodes every Friday from us or well, more so me because it's just me. But new episodes every Friday, and thank you guys so much for watching or listening to this episode. Once again, my name is Anais Lopez, and this was Grand Slams and Grand Prix. Thank you. Bye.